Next on AM 1480 WLEA, the Newsmaker Show. Here's Brian O'Neill.
Glad to have live in the studio with us Bath Village Police Chief Chad Mullen. Chief Mullen, thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
Well, I was on Facebook the other day and I saw an interesting little discussion going on your Facebook page, and it was about how I think there was a link to a story maybe about the how somebody in the Catskills was talking about how there had been some fatal overdose deaths from marijuana, and I guess this is a new thing, marijuana being laced with fentanyl. Tell us about the whole back and forth in this discussion.
Well, it started out. It started out with a little pocket credit card that was used to conceal narcotics, and I was just putting out there for officer safety because of the fact that, let alone just the marijuana that's being laced, there's heroin, there's fentanyl, and they're putting fentanyl in a lot of things, and it's an officer safety issue. And I had a couple officers tell me thank you for posting it. And I got it from another police department site. So then a couple of people that are on my friends list, and one's a relative, got into legalize the marijuana. And
into the topic of that,
and they didn't want to agree that people do lace other drugs with different drugs that can be lethal. And in my career, I've seen multiple times where somebody thought they were getting one bag of something, and all of a sudden it's been laced in their overdosing, and they can't understand why. And this one that started was in Sullivan County and Albany County, two different separate areas.
Right.
They had overdoses from marijuana that they found and tested that had fentanyl in it. So this isn't something that we typically see, but I guarantee it's going to end up coming down this way.
What's the biggest problem you're seeing lately over in Bath as far as illegal drugs go?
Most of ours is heroin, meth, crack cocaine. It's different because it depends on the time frame. Lately, it's been a lot of crack cocaine. Before that, it was a lot of meth, and it depends on what's out there.
There was a couple of big arrests lately. They had one late last week where you used to work. The Hornell Police Department arrested a couple of suspects on heroin possession charges. Then there was a crack cocaine bust over in Jasper. And in Jasper, there's a lot of power outages, I guess, this morning from the heavy winds overnight. But when I was talking to Hornell Police Chief Ted Murray the other day about the story, he told me that they got a tip that this vehicle was coming in off of 390, which is apparently where a lot of the drugs that come into the Hornell area come from. Is that the same for Bath? Do you have a lot of traffic coming in from 390 bringing in drugs to Bath?
Well, I mean, Hornell's the same as Bath, but we're right at the intersection of 86 and 390 right there. I mean, the interchange is right there. So the narcotics are coming from all over the place. They're coming from Syracuse, Albany, New York City.
So both 86 and
Rochester,
390.
Buffalo. So it's coming through both. And we're trying, maybe one day we can get the sheriff on to discuss what the next plan and goal is coming up for
Sheriff Jim Allard. That would be great.
Yes,
he's always...
because we've got something in the works, but I'm not going to speak to it because it was his start.
Sure thing. Talking this morning live with Bath Village Police Chief Chad Mullen. Chief Mullen, as far as negative behavior goes, for a suspect who's under the influence, what's the worst drug out there?
Well, at least in my career, I've seen, and that's the hard part when it comes to marijuana. Typically, if somebody was just smoking marijuana over the years of me policing, they've been pretty cooperative. When it comes to somebody that's high on meth, PCP, highly intoxicated, that's when we're going to start, unfortunately, getting people that want to fight. And that's the hard thing when it comes to looking at legalization of marijuana. They legalized alcohol, but that can get dangerous as well. And for me, it's an officer safety issue.
You see a lot of obnoxious drunks just before you even get to the drugs.
Exactly. And then you add on, and that's the problem with any of these narcotics, and that was what this conversation was the other day. Some drugs are good not good, none of them are good, but they're not going to cause an overabundance of reaction compared to when you start mixing them. You mix alcohol with marijuana, you mix fentanyl with marijuana or whatever else, that's going to cause a huge reaction that your body's just going to have problems with.
Wondering, I think I brought this up more than once, but I was interviewing Alfred Village Police Chief Paul Griffith once, and Police Chief Griffith says that one of the worst reactions that he's ever seen in suspects is when they mix caffeine drinks like Red Bull with alcohol and then some marijuana or some other type of drug in it. You ever see somebody flipping out from caffeine drinks?
Yeah, probably. If you mix all of them together, I mean, you take a Red Bull and vodka and then put some marijuana. Yeah, that would cause some problems.
Yeah. Police Chief Griffith said he's seen people punch cops and then the next day have absolutely no recollection.
That's 100% correct. Over the years of even like, say we arrest somebody when I was in Hornell, and you put them in lockup, and overnight they're screaming and yelling and off the wall, and then in the morning, if you're that morning officer taking them to court, they're pretty docile. They don't even know what happened. They're apologizing. So a lot of these mixes cause a lot of problems.
I can imagine. What is that called? Is there a phrase for that kind of reaction?
I'm not sure. Excited delirium.
A doctor would know, but
you could go with excited delirium, but that's
sure. Sounds it. Yeah. Some pretty mixed up individuals when you get a lot of chemicals in them. No big surprise there. Talking with Bath Village Police Chief Chad Mullen live in the studio this morning. Methamphetamines, bath salts. What are you seeing? Heroin, cocaine. Out of those drugs, what are you seeing the most of these days?
The bath salts have kind of not. They're still there. They're not as prevalent as they used to be. I mean, in this area, they were very prevalent. We're seeing a lot of meth lately. Crack cocaine is definitely on a rise again, but it's always there. Heroin's pretty big in this area as well.
Now, you're close to the county jail. How does that affect crime in Bath? Is there any effect on that? I know I asked this because I once lived working in radio in Williamsport, Pennsylvania. And I rode a bike to work to keep in shape in those days, and my bike I must have gone through 4 bikes in Williamsport, and I had chains. I had locks and chains. I remember once my laundry was stolen in the apartment that I was in. So I mean, that's a federal penitentiary there in Williamsport.
So if you add on the VA is a drug and alcohol rehab, so people get shipped from all over the area over to Bath, along with the amount of parolees in the area. And the jail, I guess, with the centralized arraignment, centralized booking, we haven't seen a big problem with it so far. But I guess maybe you can see something coming down the rise if the judges are letting them out and they don't have a ride back to their municipality. It's the same thing as the VA. They get dropped off in the VA for drug and alcohol rehab, and then they check themselves out and then end up down in the village.
Sure thing. Bath Village Police Chief Chad Mullen, there's a lot of arrests lately, and I'm sure this is not anything out of the ordinary or nothing unusual, but Sheriff Jim Allard has talked about this. There's a lot of great interagency cooperation going on these days. Tell us about that.
Well, he's 100% correct, and we're continuing the fight. We have a lot of different agencies that are involved. with the Steuben County District Attorney's Drug Task Force, or not Drug Task Force, but it's I don't know what to call it, but it's just a bunch of different agencies together fighting the narcotics issues in the county, including the state police, Corning, Bath, Kenesteel, Hornell. Every single agency is involved. We get together on a monthly basis and talk about things, talk about the trends. And we just had an investigators meeting the other day so they can just brainstorm and see what's going on. And we're going to look at a bigger picture. So even the agencies, including Up 390 and 86, people think maybe we don't talk, but we do. We talk a lot.
Sure.
That's a lot of times where we get our information.
I'm kind of interested in the whole thing of 390 and 86, those two routes with cars and vehicles bringing in drugs. How would, if law enforcement did not pull over a vehicle, how would they have a sense to tip you off, as they did recently with the Hornell case? There's a car coming in and there's some heroin in it. How would they have a sense of that if they didn't do a pullover themselves?
The officers?
Yes.
Well,
the officers that are see the vehicle originally on 390 and 86.
Sure. By tips. That's the best part of this. Is where we're going to get them a lot. Oh, and sometimes it's luck. You pick the right car and
sure.
And you get some probable cause to either you see something in the car that gives you probable cause to search. But typically, the sheriff's office has a tip line. Our agency, you can go through our Facebook page and put a message in there for any tips that you have. I'm sure the other agencies as well have tip lines.
Sure. As far as tips go, do a lot of them come from? Do some of them come from families of people who are?
Yeah, sometimes they do. They're looking to do an intervention or get them to stop doing what they're doing.
Now
sometimes
that's
it's friends that care
true.
about them, and we keep it anonymous, so that's the best part.
That's got to be very true of addiction, I would suspect. Is it also true of drug dealing? Do you ever get a call from a mother or a grandmother or a sibling saying, "Look, I can't take it anymore"? Living in a house with someone who's got people coming in and out all the time and they're buying drugs.
So we will get calls from neighbors in regards to that.
Yeah, that would be more likely.
And then we'll ask them to get plate numbers and give us description as the people that come by.
Sure.
And if you look at it, if you think about it this way, okay, when somebody comes over to your house to visit, how long do they stay for?
Maybe an hour or two?
Maybe an hour, maybe more, right?
When
you got people coming in 5 minutes, in 5 minute increments,
Yeah,
and,
a lot of 5 minutes.
And a lot of different people on bicycles and cars and everything else, right? I call that business. I don't call that as visiting. So there's kind of, people are not dumb. They're very bright, and they watch the neighbors. And if somebody's got a business coming out of their house and they're not selling some sort of I don't know, Mary Kay or whatever else, then we have a problem.
Talking with Bath Village Police Chief Chad Mullen. Going to take a quick break. Back after this.
You don't have to travel far for the highest quality imaging services. St. James has you covered. We have a full range of services, including X-ray at 2 convenient locations, mammography, ultrasound, MRI, bone density, echocardiogram, stress echo, and nuclear medicine. Quick appointments, friendly service, great technology, Gold Seal accreditation, and the backing of the University of Rochester imaging experts. So the next time your doctor orders an imaging test, choose St. James Hospital. Learn more at stjames.urmc.edu/imaging.
Well, meteorologist Rob Carolyn saw a lot of power outages this morning from the heavy winds that came through last night.
That's right. That strong weather system that has moved east of the region, Brian, now producing heavy rain in New England, but all of that's moving away from us. Satellite photos showing lots of cloudiness over the southern tier. It extends back across the lakes and on into Michigan this morning. Looks like we're going to be fairly cloudy today, and we'll run the risk of some widely scattered showers. It's going to be windy. Also looks like we're going to be on the cool side, Brian, after being warm this weekend. I think temperatures are just going to kind of end up between 40 and 45. The wind that'll be picking up later today is going to make it feel even cooler. Sunrise this morning was at 6:28. The sun will set tonight at 7:52. Now, we may see a shower or two during the evening, then skies will start to clear overnight. It's going to be windy. Lows will fall back to about 30 to 35. Tomorrow, a nicer day, sunshine, a bit breezy, with highs between 50 and 55. Weather starts to go downhill tomorrow night, increasingly cloudy, chance of showers, lows 35 to 40. Bryan will see scattered showers on Wednesday. Temperatures Wednesday 55 to 60. Those showers that start tomorrow night and into Wednesday look like they may linger into the upcoming weekend.
Talking on the Newsmaker show this morning with Chad Mullen, the Bath Village Police Chief. Let's talk about home invasions a little bit. Now, back in November, and I'm looking on our website, you were looking for a suspect who was wanted for second-degree robbery for an October home invasion. Let's talk about home invasions in terms of drugs.
So that case right there, that's exactly what it was. There was a number of people that came in and robbed a drug addict or a drug dealer. They knew that person had some money. They knew they had narcotics, and ended up robbing him. And that's a lot of times what we see. I can tell you this: I'm very, 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 very proud of my officers, especially my investigator, Colin Taft. He's done an amazing job.
Yeah, I see that name a lot, yeah.
Since we got our investigator in and me picking him, he's done an amazing job. Honestly, he didn't even go on his family vacation this week just because he has a number of things he has to do.
Sure.
So, and I tried to force him, but he wouldn't. But they're all doing amazing. He's doing a phenomenal job. And honestly, over the past year and a half or so or more, I've seen our property crimes going down a little bit because of the supply of narcotics is a whole lot lower. So people aren't.
When they're not under the influence of drugs, there's less.
They're also.
home invasions.
They don't have the supply there to try to go out and steal something or get into somebody's property to sell it for the narcotics. If they're not there, they'll go looking somewhere else.
Is that tied in a lot with addiction? People suffering from addiction problems, or is that more drug dealers doing the home invasion?
No, it's addiction problems.
What kind of jams do you see the drug dealers getting into?
Well, depending on how big they are.
Selling drugs, but is there a secondary type crime?
Depending on how big they are. It can get into prostitution. It can get into all sorts of different things.
The drug dealers start. Are you talking about pimping or becoming prostitutes themselves?
No, like pimping.
Okay.
Because these addicts need narcotics, so there's all different ways to make money. Unfortunately. Talking
with Bath Village Police Chief Chad Mullen. Chad, down to the last few minutes, down to about the last 5 minutes, anything I have not brought up that you wanted to talk about?
No, I don't think so. I can, there's different opinions in regards to the reason why you brought me in here is my post.
The Facebook post. I thought that was very interesting.
So it was a good conversation. It was a lot of different people getting involved, and I think that's what we need. And it was positive. Yeah, people had opinions, but they kept it clean, and they understood. Some of them understood each other and some didn't. I had some drug users and police officers and mothers and different people that were commenting, and it was a good conversation. It shows you what we have out there and what people can do without having to result to name calling or violence. You can sit down and just have a good conversation about the issues at hand.
Let's pull that page up. You did have a lot of comments on this, and here is a comment from one person who said, and I won't name names here.
Thank you.
If you're really looking to hide drugs from law enforcement, I'll never understand why criminals do such blatant things. And you responded saying, the problem is if officers aren't paying attention, this would slip right by them. Drug dealers are getting very sneaky. And tell us about that.
Well, it's not just the drug dealers, but it's companies that are making different things. In my own pocket, I have a knife that folds up into it looks like a credit card. So when we're looking for stuff, think about it this way: some people that shared that were from the Steuben County Jail, because they need to know what's coming into that jail as well. So if they don't catch that and that gets by them, these companies are making different things to hide narcotics, so we can't find them. So if we're not up to date on what to look for, let alone if they were, say, it was marijuana in there laced with fentanyl, and one of my officers unfortunately grabs that credit card when they're going through somebody's property to put them in county jail or whatever else, and all of a sudden they're having an overdose, that's a problem for me.
That sounds very dangerous. Here's another comment that was posted on your Facebook page. It said, and this is a little sarcastic, but the tone was pretty much all civil.
Yes.
Maybe quit busting people for small amounts of weed, considering that marijuana is decriminalized. And you responded and said to that person, no one said anything about marijuana, it's decriminalized. So no one cares about that so much anymore, but hopefully the same dealer every time does not put fentanyl into that marijuana.
Exactly. Marijuana nowadays is decriminalized. We don't put them in cuffs for doing it. It's almost like getting a speeding ticket. So it's more of the concern of now they're putting fentanyl in it. So if one of my officers has to deal with marijuana, which typically they wouldn't have to worry about getting an overdose from touching it, now they do. Let alone having to come to a scene and see marijuana pipe and marijuana on the ground and wonder why somebody's overdosing.
Yes, and a couple people on your post here kept bringing up busting people for small amounts of marijuana, and you responded on that saying, I'm not worried about small amounts of marijuana. I'm worried about the fentanyl-laced weed or heroin-laced with fentanyl. That does concern me and the other officers out there. I hope that anybody out there who's smoking marijuana does not get a bad batch. Final question for you, Chad Mullen. With we're approaching legalizing marijuana here in New York State. Will people be buying that? Will people be buying from the same people that they always bought marijuana from, or will it come from some government agency or office?
I'm not sure, because if you look at Colorado and California, there's that documentary. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's called Murder Mountain, some of it's legal and some of it is, the black market's still there, even if the marijuana is legal, because they changed things. So just because it's legalized does not mean there will not be black market on it. Obviously, I mean, look in California, look in Colorado. There's still crime. There's still people doing illegal things because of something that's legal. I mean, look at alcohol. People do illegal things under alcohol. So it's still going to be there.
And I'll finish up with this. Somebody on your post said that this is fake news about the fentanyl-laced marijuana, that this is all fake, that it's all made up. What's your response to that?
Well, knowing that person, they I'm not saying they're in a bubble, but they have lived in this area for their whole life. They've never done anything else but marijuana, I guess. I hope. They've never seen what I've seen over my years of policing. I mean, I've been policing for almost 20 years, and I've seen people who grabbed marijuana or smoked marijuana and ended up overdosing because something else was in it. I mean, dealers do put other things in drugs that they don't tell their people what's in it.
Well, that's that for today's show. Bath Village Police Chief Chad Mullen, thanks so much for coming in.
Thanks for having me.